So we've ran ID Cyber sessions for a while now, and we've interviewed a range of different people from different backgrounds. And we thought, why not interview one of our own? So today we have the man, the myth, the legend, Cary Hendricks. And we're going to be asking him a few questions about what we do and what makes us ID Cyber. So I think first, Cary, Cyber Essentials is the bulk of what we do here at ID Cyber. So we process Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus certification. So I thought that's a good place to start and cover briefly what is Cyber Essentials, what types of clients do we typically see, and the reasons sort of why they come to us for certification.
Well, Cyber Essentials is the government scheme that allows businesses to become more cyber secure, and it follows a framework that is quite easy to follow. The steps are pretty straightforward, but it gives businesses that opportunity to decide, hey, are we ready for this? Do we need to do something else? And if I don't know what to do, how would I actually get started, go about, and so on? So on to your second part about who comes to us for Cyber Essentials. Usually it's smaller companies, and it's businesses that, for example, are starting up, or they are now starting to grow, and they need to now demonstrate with a certificate or an audit that they are actually doing something with cybersecurity in the first part. So whether they go for a tender, whether they are applying for a grant, there's inevitably some questions within the question set that they need to answer about what are you thinking about cybersecurity in your organization. And for many organizations, it's like, cyber what?
We hear that a lot, and we have that reaction often.
And we've had many sort of famous cases over the last couple of years where we've had folks that didn't even think cyber is part of their business or that they have anything to do with that. But once you break down their business and says, well, do you send an email? Do you receive an email? Do you go onto the web for anything? How do you download a copy of the grant, or how do you fill it in? Do you get a text message from a service or anything like that? And they usually go, well, yeah, I actually do.
Yeah, they forget about the fundamentals or the basics.
Absolutely.
No, that leads us nicely actually into our next question. So obviously cybersecurity affects every industry. So I thought it might be a good idea to look at industries that maybe wouldn't think of cybersecurity as being as top of their priority list. So maybe like the hospitality industry, for instance. What kind of, obviously they use a range of systems from like the booking systems to maybe apps where they can book online. A lot of their freelance staff, maybe their area managers, will have mobile devices. It's more what types of devices in that industry all connect, and how, and if I owned a chain of restaurants or hotels, how should I be thinking about my systems? What would that mean to me?
Well, one of the most important bits within that particular scenario is how all of the systems are working together. For example, in your restaurant or facility that you have.
Let's say Meg's Kitchen. We have Meg's Kitchen.
Yes. So
we do serve a wide range of food.
Yeah. So, for example, so you may say, okay, Meg's Kitchen. Here is the QR code, free Wi-Fi, right? So that is so you already have Wi-Fi within your environment.
Yes.
So the next question is, who else uses the Wi-Fi for what? So, for example, you mentioned staff. Are staff using the same Wi-Fi as the clients? How is the Wi-Fi set up? Is there a dedicated Wi-Fi for them or not? How are your point of sale systems connected? So when somebody hands you the credit card machine or the payment machine, it's like, okay, please pay. How does that actually connect to the rest of the world.
Yes.
So is that secure? Is that safe to do that?
Yeah, and of course it's standard when you go into an industry like a restaurant or something like that. You do expect to be safe while you're within there, so you expect a certain sort of standard of service, maybe a certain quality of food.
Yep.
And you would expect that your bank details would also be safe when you're making your payment at the end.
So when we move on a little bit more and we look at the admin within the restaurant or Meg's Kitchen, for example, so you may have a PC there where you get maybe an email about bookings and so on. How is that device connecting to the internet? Is it also using the free Wi-Fi you provide to everybody else? Now, that is another device on the free Wi-Fi. So for other security bits that you have decided on, hey, we've got Wi-Fi, we want to be able to check on stuff, and maybe stop a dine and dash situation, right? So you may have put CCTV on. Oh, did we connect our CCTV to our free Wi-Fi? You know, so if we have all of these systems on our free Wi-Fi section, it's kind of like, well, it's all I need to do as an attacker. I need to connect to the free Wi-Fi to get access to your systems potentially.
Yeah.
So the kind of things that you need to consider is perhaps like, okay, how am I going to keep things separate? How am I going to keep things segmented in a way that it's safe for you as a business and safe for the customers using your business?
Yes. And that's within the walls of Meg's Kitchen and how we operate. But Meg's Kitchen also has a large supply network. So we have our supply chain, which is the partners that I would work for or I would work with as part of my establishment. So we've got everything from suppliers in terms of delivery of the fresh food. You've got the management of, you said, the payment systems. You have things like that. So that's all sort of integrated from a supply chain perspective. So how does that come into things? So let's say for instance, Meg's Kitchen has done all the tick box. We've got cyber essentials. We're secure. We're happy that we've separated everything. Free Wi-Fi's for guests only. But what if my confidence isn't there in my supply chain? How can I reassure myself that they're also taking their security seriously?
So one of the main things you can do is have a chat with your suppliers and to say, hey, we are trying to be more cyber secure. How can you show us how you are more cyber secure? Now, in the last couple of breaches in the last couple of weeks, all came through supply chain or some process of that. So it is an extremely vital question that you had just asked. And it's about how would you know whether your suppliers are safe? And the same thing is, how would your suppliers know you are safe? So it's fairly straightforward in the sense that you can demonstrate that you've got cyber essentials, you've got a certificate to say, yes, you have done all the things. You may suggest to your supply chain, have a look at cyber essentials, have a look at the questions, implement them, and so on. Because the questions are free.
Yes.
The advice is free. You can download all of that from the various different websites. And because you can download them, you can see about what it is that you need to do. So it kind of helps breed that security culture forward.
Yeah, that instill that mindset.
Yeah. And it's really important that this should not be done through fear. This should be done because I want to be safe. I am going to be safe.
Yes.
I am going to protect my business. I'm going to protect your business.
Protect what you've worked for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think From myself not being from a non-technical background, I think in my mind I'm looking at it from if I had a house, let's say I had my house and the conservatory, I've decided to get a conservatory on my house. So in this term, this would be a supply chain or an addition to what I already have. And when it comes to securing that, you would think of the physical security controls. You wouldn't install a conservatory where your windows didn't lock properly, or your door wasn't secure, or maybe you don't have an intruder alarm. Of course, if you forget to lock the door, you want to be alerted if someone comes in and they shouldn't have. So I think those are common practices that we would do as standard, whether it was a conservatory, a garage, a summer house, anything like that, in addition to our home life or our personal life. And it's the same with network security or with your digital security. You should be thinking of a standard security protocol that's easy to follow, simple to follow, but highly effective.
Yeah. So for example, there's a sort of a life cycle you can look through. It's only like 5 parts, but it's really important part. The very first part of this sort of cycle that you go through is called assess. Now, and it's about having a look and see what you have. What do you have? Do you have windows that can't lock? Do you have doors that probably have an issue locking?
Yes. Is your camera facing the entry point where it should be facing?
Exactly. And how is footfall through your premises or past your premises? Is it going to give a opportunistic attacker a way of spotting something and go, I see it.
Yes.
I see it.
I have a way in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and the second step in this is protect. So you've made a list of all the things you have, and now you have a list of things that you are going to protect. Right.
Gives your start to a good place to start.
Exactly. So obviously once you've put those things in, and these are still visual parts. So the next step is detect. So you can then see, are all the things I've done working? Is it working? And if it is working, I can go on to the monitoring stage. So I can see that, yes, if anything changes in my environment, I am in a position to say, hey, I need to go back to the assess part, the protect part, the detect part, and then the monitor part to see if everything works okay.
Yeah, you have a clear process, clear
Absolutely.
guidelines to follow, and you can be on the ball straight away. So I think this brings us on nicely to nowadays the attacks are becoming more and more sophisticated. And I think in light of the recent attacks that we've seen all over the news, and not just them, the thousands of attacks that do happen daily that we don't hear about. And of course here, our passion is prevention. We want to prevent this from happening. And it is really sad to see when a company has been hit and they're almost past that point of prevention, they're now into that next stage. So I think we should maybe touch upon that and how prevention is always better than being in the
absolutely.
The
and because all of the steps that we've mentioned before is really important for the prevent part of preventing something happening, but we haven't really mentioned the 5th part of the life cycle, and that is recovery. What would happen if something bad was to happen? If something happened to Meg's kitchen, how are you going to react? How are you going to put in the plans to say, hey, we've protected all these things. Here are the steps we are going to follow to say, this is what we're going to do to recover. This is the steps we are going to say, okay, we've done everything. We may need to make an announcement to customers, suppliers, or anything else. And it's like, how are you going to do it? And you should be prepared to be able to do that. Not like, what are we going to say?
Yes.
Who are we going to say it to? When are we going to say it to?
Yeah.
And inevitably, these parts, and as much as the protect part is in place, it's about having the message out there to say, we have done everything so far to keep you safe and your data safe within Meg's Kitchen.
So one of the sort of takeaway points is communication is key in our industry. So whether that's within your own environment, within your staff, within your external, and anyone else involved in your service. We do a lot of work here with managed service providers and managed security service providers in terms of assisting them with certification for their clients. So we know that communication with that is key. So just to touch upon the partnerships, why is our partner network so strong? What makes us different from any other certification body?
Well, I think the reason why our partner network is so strong is like you mentioned, the communication that we have. It's a very open relationship.
Yeah.
The relationship is built on trust. Okay, so and the trust part is about we trust them to look after their customers, just like their customers would trust them to look after their business. Okay, so that is the very first part of this. The second part on that is that the Cyber Essentials questionnaire is absolutely vital for the customer, because they could use that questionnaire to kind of gauge the service that they get from their managed service provider or their managed security provider to say, hey, are you doing all these things for me?
Yeah. They can check the checking.
They can check the checking, absolutely.
Yes.
So they can be sure that whatever they are engaging their clients with or their providers with is that they're actually getting what they pay for, or that's actually going to make a difference for their business.
Getting their money's worth.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yep.
So, and I think this is one of the reasons why our partners are so successful, because they provide the service that is valued, that is trusted, and then above everything else is a secure service that can allow their clients to be able to apply for grants, apply for tenders with minimum fuss, because everything is in place already for that. And I think that's probably one of the best value offsets that you could have by working with a very trusted managed service provider or security provider, which is absolutely key.
Yeah, and having that certification can open up doors for your business and bring in a lot more opportunities that otherwise wouldn't, of course. So in October of this year, we have our big 10-year anniversary, 10 years of ID Cyber Solutions. So we just wanted to use this as a bit of a reflection. Obviously, you've been here, you're from the start, built it from the ground up. So how far have ID Cyber came in terms of our milestones, our achievements? We've won a few awards over the years.
Yes.
I think that would be quite nice to have a moment of reflection.
I remember the days when ID Cyber was basically a single desk in a small room, only had space for just my laptop. Some of the fond memories at that particular time was the entire wall was covered with flip charts of plans and things that we were going to do, trying to look forward and see how are we going to try and influence the world. And that is a very profound idea when Ian and I started the company. We started the company to be able to effect change. We wanted to change the whole sort of business environment, if you can say that, but not just the business environment, but create a pathway for future generations going forward. So, for example, we wanted to have, and if you squint on the photos on the on the flip charts, you will see there are training pathways that we've mapped out there. So, as what would if a student or an unemployed person decide, hey, I want to do cyber, I want to get involved into cyber, what would be my pathway be?
Yeah, what's the first step? How do I get on that?
What would be the first step? How do I get on and move forward? So, so fast forward a little bit on, from the single desk. Soon we were 2 desks, then 3 desks when Kevin joined us. So, and certainly after that, it was 4 desks, 5 desks, and
now we have
all the desks started just accumulating with folks sitting at desks doing stuff.
And now we have a fully functional office, training room. We have it all going on here.
Absolutely.
From a one-man band to what we are today.
Yeah, and and that is a huge testament to our dedication in paying things forward, right? So we wanted to help the next generation become far more cyber savvy, cyber secure, and they themselves go on to make a difference in the various ways that they can do.
They feel supported enough to be able to do that, to propel forward in that.
So in the early days of Cyber Essentials, we established a relationship with Glasgow Caledonian University, right? So, and one of the first things that we did there was to bring in the into the cybersecurity curriculum, or the security curriculum. It wasn't called cyber then, but in the computer security curriculum, we introduced as a whole semester course on just Cyber Essentials. So a whole cohort of about 200 students would go through this whole Cyber Essentials process so that they could thoroughly understand it, how it works, why it works, how, what do all these things mean?
And be able to flip that perspective as well, to see the questions that the client would actually be answering.
Exactly. So, so one of the very first things that we established with that particular program was something called ACE practitioners, right? So with the ACE practitioners, with our accreditation body at that particular time, we created a cohort of newly qualified, newly graduated students that can now go, as part of leaving university, that they can now go out and speak to businesses, and start engaging. The upshot of that was that several of those students that formed groups at the university started their own startups right out of university. Even before they've even finished university, they already started their startups.
They felt confident enough to be able to do that.
And they had their startups in cybersecurity. So that was a major step through for them.
Yes.
And as part of that early intervention that we did with Glasgow Caledonian University, we now still sponsor a program within the university to do with cybersecurity.
Yes, we do. We sponsor
the best student.
Yes.
For example. So, but as you may well know, some of them work for us now. Some of the winners work for us. So, and they are some of our prized assessors that we have within our organization.
And it's great to see that we really are powering the next generation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And quite a few of those cohorts have now gone on to work for very influential organizations. Some of them have moved on to sort of critical national infrastructure. Others have moved into education. Again, spreading the word that we started in the beginning, sort of carrying that forward to all of the new students
Yes.
that are going to be helping to make, well, everybody safe.
So from the original pathways, we've now got avenues and corners coming off, additional branches from the original design pathway for learning.
Yeah,
into
exactly,
cyber.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, and our contribution doesn't stop there.
No.
You know, we are in collaboration with IASME, for example, who is a delivery partner for Cyber Essentials.
Yep.
So we have a lot of input into how to make the scheme better, how to engage, you know, and just doing all this going forward.
Yeah, and I guess that's what makes us unique, a unique certification body is we do have that influence with IASME, we do have that close relationship with
absolutely.
them. We do share common goals.
Yeah. So, you know, and there's, with all of the certification bodies that we've helped, we still help a whole number of them expand, even with us now being an official training place for IASME, we now train other certification bodies to be better and to, you know, to come on board. So
to join the circle.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So you talk about influencing the next generation, and we do that also by the training that we offer. So certification is Cyber Essentials is a big bulk of what we do, but we also deliver a range of training courses.
Yes.
Yep, we do them online or in person.
Yes.
Yep.
Or in between.
Or in between, yes.
Which is both in person and online.
Yeah, a mixed blend. And all the content is delivered by you.
Yes.
So I think all of our course information is already out there. So I think if I was a student and I wanted to come along to one of these courses, I would like to know who was training me. So we do have a couple of questions for you on the training aspect. So number one is what is your proudest moment from all the courses that you've ran and all the students that you've taught? Is there anything jumping out at you that would be your proudest moment?
Wow. Well, there's quite a few in terms of the training side. So some of the proudest moments was with the work with GCU, for example, where it was such a huge group of students finishing up, and they all done so well. So that was a really good feel-good moment, because you could see that there's all of these folks going out to go forward. Some of the feel-good bits is when we opened our own training center here, and we could now deliver all of these in person, because you need to remember that we opened our training center directly after lockdown ended.
Yes.
Right. So for 2 years, everybody was just looking at screens and just, I suppose
disconnected a bit.
We all got fed up of just like, right, I'm sitting in front of a screen and nobody really cares if I'm listening, watching, participating and so on. So when the new training center came along, it became a very interactive process in terms of you can physically see people in 3D Great.
You can have a real life conversation, not
Absolutely.
through a screen.
Yes, and nobody goes blank after a while, and there's no sound interruptions and everything else. But in all jest, it made the whole training experience so much better. It really enriched the delivery, the participation, and I suppose the understanding of what was going on, because they weren't disturbed by a doorbell, a dog that needs a walk, or anything else. They are really focused on the materials and so on.
Yeah.
So out of all of the different courses that we deliver, for example, there is the Ethical Hacker. It's probably one of our more premier courses.
Yes.
Itself has seen a whole lot of iterations go through itself, from being stepped up into a major sort of redesign of the course.
Yeah.
And that was in version 10. Version 11 came on, brand new content. Version 12, things changed again.
Yep.
Version 13, that is now out, okay, unlucky for some, lucky for some, I don't know. It involves AI.
AI.
So it kind of brings in sort of the next jump that we need to do in terms of thinking about cybersecurity as how are we going to cater for the future? Just like when we first started off and thinking, how are we going to cater for the future by training people up to become proficient, give advice, do stuff, so on. Now, the next thing that we are focusing on helping with is AI.
Is AI.
So that is with the ethical hacking part. Now, we have also the kind of course that goes hand in hand with that, which is the incident handler course. So again, when we touched earlier in our episode about the protect part,
Yes.
right, and the recovery part, it's like, what do we do at that stage? How would we do it? What are the steps? Are there ways we can do things easy? Are we doing things hard? What is acceptable for us to do?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think the evaluation or evolution rather of training, education, what we do as a company is an extremely proud moment, because we've come so far, we've trained hundreds of students, and it's a case of they're all out there.
And they've all moved on, yeah.
They all moved on and made careers, and nobody's ever come back, and please don't come back and say, I didn't like it.
Yeah. So over the years, you've seen many changes in environments. So whether that is from the certification to the sophistication of attacks, X, Y, Z. How has cyber influenced your life throughout your life, and what has brought you here today? Sharing that knowledge and expertise for the next generation.
It's one of those long answer questions. It is a question that has been in the making for over 30 years. Right? Yes, I'm old, but but I'm getting there. But no, it's genuinely one of those things that evolution brought me here. All right. So when I was at university, Windows 95 didn't come out. Windows 95 wasn't released yet. the internet itself, there was no web pages, there were no nothing, right? So the internet was a very, very, very different place.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So with the advent of Windows 95 and then browsers came along and you saw this whole thing starting to build up.
Yeah. So you've seen it become what it is today.
Yes.
Right from the very start.
Yes. So, and it was really important to see that evolution happening. Well, certainly for myself, okay, to fully understand it. And the process that happened with that was the fact that as things happened, people added things on, right? So online shopping didn't just overnight, you know, or it's like I turned it on, ta-da, I can buy stuff, you know.
We've created a web page. We better make this a shop.
Yeah, exactly. You know, there wasn't things, and it has had a profound effect on things like the logistics and so on. But the more profound change that has had in how businesses operated, how things changed, how even banks changed, right? So now you can manage your account online and you can transfer stuff. We don't think anything about those things nowadays. It's like, yeah, I'll just do it online and it's done.
Yeah, but that came from somewhere, that started somewhere.
Yes, exactly. So as the evolution happened and they added on security, because the first ones didn't have security, because, hey, what is this cybersecurity? In fact, the word cyber didn't even exist. In fact, cyber meant something completely different in the 90s. Okay. So
that's for another episode.
Yes. So, but the thing is, it is this evolution, and you saw the whole thing grow. You saw the whole thing grow from very staticky, very blocky bits to very interactive websites. And then in the 2000s, things started going a bit faster.
Yeah.
But then we saw the emergence of cybercrime and things like that. A lot more hacking, a lot more malware, and you know, and this was particularly the trend further on up to where we are now. If you had to sort of roll back and look at the way websites are today, especially with AI, we are at the blocky bit of the internet where hey, ChatGPT, here's my single line question, give me an answer. It's kind of like in the 1998 when Google came along. You know, before then there was no Google, and you can just put in a search and go, it found something.
Yeah,
great.
Before that, you had to go to the library, or you had to find your own research.
Yes, exactly. So in some sense, internet-wise, we're back at 1998 and the beginning of Google with ChatGPT.
Yes.
If we were to fast forward even 5 years from now, how is it going to evolve? How is it going to change our world?
Our everyday life, how deeply embedded is it going to be in our everyday life?
And we need to prepare businesses for the fact that, hey, if we need to investigate something, prepare, detect, monitor something, how are we going to protect ourselves against things like this? How are we going to do that? Now, again, the thing is not about fear.
No.
It's about
education,
but it's about understanding the new bits, the requirements for the new bits. Like, why do we need security? You don't need security. Why, you know, and seriously, in the older days, forgive me, I'm saying the older days, but there was a general thing about Why do I have to have antivirus on my machine? It makes my system go slower. It makes it so slow.
So people were less inclined to have it. But of
Exactly.
course, as technology has advanced and we've realised that the need for that antivirus software, that's also evolved.
It has to be there.
It has to adapt to current day.
And I think everybody that's now in cybersecurity, doing training, getting educated, needs to embrace sort of the new wave that is coming.
Yeah, that is AI as well. With us being a cyber security company, artificial AI is still very new to us as well. It's new to everyone. It's not just us. It influences everyone's life.
Just like in 1994, when it's like web pages. Wow.
We're sort of having
new
the
for
same moment.
everybody. We're at that very same moment.
Yeah. Which is unique, and it's collective. It's almost like it may be like the festive season, that one time of year where everyone feels the same fuzzy feelings. We're all doing the same things. It's almost like that with AI. Essentially, this new things came in. We're all like, oh, a new toy, or we're trying to figure it out. And again, and it is just all getting together, because it influences everyone's everyday life, not just IT companies, not just cyber security focused.
And this is what makes it so important in our work as a certification body, as an education establishment, where we deliver courses, provide advice. It's all about how do we keep ourselves safe. What is all of the things we need to be aware of? And we're back to Meg's kitchen. What's connected to my Wi-Fi? What's coming into my network?
Yes.
What is, I need to be able to take stock and have a look and say, okay, these are the risks. Or if it's like, we need to make the change from, hey, this is cool, to like, okay, what is the business risk for having this coolness?
Yes. Does the coolness, does it balance?
Yes, exactly.
So I think that's everything today, Cary. We've covered a wide range of things, but thank you for sharing your expertise and just your life experiences and your thoughts. It's been really insightful, and I've enjoyed our chat this morning.
Oh, thank you very much. But we must say though, the journey is not over. The journey in many ways has just started, and join us on our journey.
Watch this space. And if you need any information on Cyber Essentials, certification or training, you can visit our websites, or you can get in touch with us today.